This is page 11. We're in lesson 1, and we're continuing to talk about how we analyze graphs. So if you haven't yet, please go back and do activity 1, watch those videos, fill out the information that we did, and even do like page 10, because if you're here now and this is your first time to this lesson, like you should go back. Okay, but I'm glad you're here. Keep learning. Let's take a look at it. So here we have in compare the graphs for each of the scenarios given. So our first two scenarios we're going to consider is the smartphone and cold weather, which was on page 6 and page 8. And so we really just need the graphs from smartphone and cold weather, and we're going to analyze them. Let me see if I can get the picture cited in the way I want it. Okay. So here is the smartphone graph, and from the origin, or really close to the origin, the graph starts to increase, and then it starts to increase with greater speed. It does not have a constant rate of change because this isn't one straight line, it's got a smooth curve to it. Perhaps that's a difference that we can comment on between smartphone and cold weather. With the cold weather, ski resort, etc., the colder weather has this like steady increase. It's a straight, constant rate of change. And then right at the y-axis, the rate of change dramatically increases. But after a time, it stays the same. So this graph for cold weather has some constant rate of change in pieces, while this graph has a smooth but not a constant rate of change. So when we talk about the differences between graphs, perhaps that's the first thing that we should write down. That in the comparison between these two, the first thing, smartphone graph has a smooth curve and is growing with not a constant rate of change. Please pause the video, write down, skip forward, and then come back, all right? I'll wave you back in and wait for a minute. The smartphone graph. Okay, are you here? I'm going to pause for a minute, maybe because you're scrubbing the video to find it. The smartphone graph is continuous with a smooth curve and a non-constant rate of change. Continuous, because we never broke up the graph into other separate sections with gaps or holes in them. It's a smooth curve because there's no corners. The graph also has a non-constant rate of change because the rate of change down here is smaller than the rate of change up here. It's based on how steep the graph is visually. So I'm going to get ready to do the same thing. I'm going to write a sentence. Maybe you skip forward 30 seconds to see if I've written the sentence down. But in this sentence, I'm going to talk about cold weather. The cold weather graph is, what would I say? I would say the cold weather graph, come on now, stay on the screen. The cold weather graph is continuous, but it does not have a smooth curve. It does have constant rates of change in its various pieces. All right. Okay, I had to think about it while I wrote it, and so now I'm going to pause you. Maybe you're finding this part of the video. The cold weather graph is continuous with corners where the lines join together. And the 3 lines, that's what there are, 1, 2, 3. The 3 lines each have a constant rate of change, or they have their own constant rates of change. One other observation, though, that's important to notice is that both of the graphs, the graph for smartphone and the graph for cold weather are increasing. Okay, this is the point of the video where I'm going to say I'm actually going to maybe allow, there's a lot of writing. Because to be proficient and communicate our understanding of the graphs that we're talking about, we need to be able to say with words what's happening. So these are my 3 sentences that I've said for smartphone compared to the cold weather graph. And we're doing the same thing for the something's fishy graph and its magic, and then for baton twirling and jelly bean challenge. What I'm going to say you should do is you should pause the video, do your own analysis, and you can use the words that I said here and just fit them in with your own description, because maybe you say continuous, maybe you don't. Maybe you say smooth curve, maybe you don't. And there might be another observation that I didn't write down for this one, but I want you to be able to maybe come up with it yourself. And then skip forward 2 minutes. This will be a fairly long video because of the writing. So skip forward and then see what I wrote and compare the two. But before you skip forward, do the work yourself and then check to see if we line up. There's no bad observations. It's just come up with your own creative way of expressing what you notice and then check it with the way that I did it and we'll align. So I'm going to compare something's fishy and its magic. Okay, it's a little bit backwards. I'm going to talk it out and then I'm going to write it out. What I notice is both of these curves are smooth curves because neither of these curves have corners. This curve has a non-constant rate of change while this curve has a constant rate of change. Both graphs are decreasing and then constant, continuous, non-constant, smooth curve, decreasing. That's all the characteristics. So I'm going to write it up. Ooh, I'm going to write it up after the bell. I appreciate you being here. My time, the bell's about to ring. Your time, you are writing down the things that we observed. Continuous, smooth curve, decreasing, increasing, and then please do the same thing for baton twirling and jelly bean challenge, and then just check with me. I'm going to leave them blank because I'm running out of time, but I want you to have a chance to practice them yourself and check with me during class. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode.